Lexington Township work session discussion meeting for Thursday, November 9th at 7:03. Roll call, Manager Falk.
Commissioner Stump,
Here.
Commissioner Atwood,
Here via teleconference.
Commissioner Gray,
Here.
Commissioner Zona,
Here.
Commissioner Bevan,
Here.
Commissioner Goss,
Here.
President Hagus.
Here, could everyone please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thanks for our district attorney, Ziccarelli, coming to speak tonight. I believe you have a presentation you can provide for the board. Thank you.
Mr. President, I don't know if you want to wait for Sergeant Workman to come,
He's
or...
coming, he's coming off the road.
All right. Yeah, we can wait.
Is that all right?
Yep,
Okay.
perfect.
Sure, I'm happy to wait.
Thank you.
If any residents would like to speak tonight, could you sign the book at the podium? All right, let the record reflect no residents would like to speak tonight. Work session discussion topics, Manager Falk.
Item number 1, the 2022 audit is complete, and Mark Turnley, our auditor, is here to present it to the board.
Board members, thanks for having me here this evening. In front of you, I put a thick copy of the audit report itself, but more importantly, for the sake of this evening, right inside the front cover, there's a document dated for this evening that I'm going to use as the focal point of my presentation. I took the highlights out of the audit report for the sake of the board to show how the township did for calendar year 2022 and provide some comparative prior year information. So you'll know you have the right document in front of you. Of about halfway down the first page, it says General Fund Balance Analysis. So in looking at that particular page, page 1, I give you a 5-year history of the main operating fund of the township, the general fund. We're going to talk about their other pots of money, so to speak, in just a minute or so. But the main operating fund, the general fund, here's where you were or ended up for the last 5 calendar years. And the last year, the most recent year that we finished, 2022, you can see was $6,726,000 roughly. And that was a fairly significant increase from last year, almost $2 million or 40%. But below that, I asterisk for the sake of the board, the reason for that increase mainly was the amount of ARPA, the American Rescue Plan money that you received, almost $1.6 million, and then an increase in earned income tax collections of about $650,000. So those were the main drivers behind that increase in fund balance. When you look to the top of page 2, still staying with the general fund balance, a small portion of the general fund balance that I just talked about is reserved or earmarked for calendar year 23 expenses. But the larger portion, which is known as unassigned, unearmarked, and can be used for general operations, I'm giving you a 5-year history of this. And you can see at the end of 22, that unassigned amount still significantly higher than last year because of the reasons we just discussed, ended up at $6.2 million. The reason I bring this to the board's attention is simply in our industry, as I tell the board annually, there's an organization called the Government Finance Officers Organization. And what they like to do is study fund balances and try to determine what a target level that commissioners should look to have their unassigned fund balance amount at. And what they tell their municipalities is try to be at a target rate of roughly 2 months average expenditures for the township. So for the sake of the board, in that paragraph underneath, I do the math for you. And 2 months of expenditures, general fund expenditures for the township is about $2.3 million, which is about 16% of your budget. Your unassigned fund balance is roughly 42% of your budget. So you can see that you have a healthy general fund balance and you're above their target levels or their recommendation for where that unassigned amount should be. Just, once again, general information for the sake of the commissioners. When you turn to the top of page 3, just to give you a 5-year history of the general fund revenues of the township. And you can see the most recent year at the bottom, about a 14% increase. And I apologize for being repetitive. Again, the same reasons are the ARPA monies that were received of about $1.6 million, and the increase in earned income taxes were the main drivers behind the increase in revenues. Down below, a 5-year history of the expenditures of the general fund. And you can see this year, 2022, almost $14 million in expenditures, about a $720,000 increase, 5%. And I just go on to remind you that when you look at that table of expenditures, you see that big drop halfway down of about $1.2 million. I'm just reminding the board why that drop occurred in that particular year. When you turn to the top of page 4, I always like to give the board an idea of how you did your approved budget versus your actual numbers. And when you look at the first bullet point, I tell the board that the actual revenues exceeded budget by about $1.6 million. And that's the side of the equation you always want to be on, actual revenues exceeding budget. And the main reasons, again, were the 2 areas that I've cited already. You budgeted for a certain amount in both earned income tax and ARPA funds, and you could see how much you exceeded those budget expectations by in calendar year 2022. In the back of the audit report, and this goes not only for revenues but in expenditures, and I always call your attention to this, I've put in there detail schedules of your line item by line item revenues and expenditures. So if you ever wanted to go back and say any particular line item in public works, public safety, whatever that may be, I reference those pages here that are in that thick audit report if you want to go back and see the greater detail. We're just talking at a high summary level on this presentation. Second bullet point, general fund budgeted expenditures exceeded actual. Of course, that's the side of the equation you want to be. You don't want to exceed your budget, if at all possible, by about $679,000. Here were the 4 areas in spending how you did budget versus actual, and you can read them. You can see that in each instance, you had a favorable outcome. You were under budget in each of these main areas. Underneath that, when you prepared your budget, you anticipated using about $420,000 of the prior year unused fund balance reserve to balance your budget. But in actuality, when 2022 results were finalized, you actually had excess revenues of almost $2 million. So you didn't have to go back and dip in to the prior year fund balance. As a matter of fact, you built upon it to go going forward into 23. And again, I highlight the pages where you can find the detail information. Then on the top of page 5, and this is the last part of this particular document I'll discuss with the board, you know, I talked about in the beginning about having those various other pots of funds that are earmarked for specific purposes and not available for general operating purposes. Here are the 7 funds that you have and the change in their fund balances. Obviously a lot smaller than the general fund, but designated for particular purposes. Liquid fuels, that's your highway aid money that you get annually, so forth and so on all the way down the line, just so you can see where you ended at the end of calendar year 2022. And the last comment, maybe the most important, at least from our perspective, is in that thick audit report, there are 2 sections that I always call the board's attention to. One is our independent auditor's opinion, and what we've given the board this year is what's known as an unmodified opinion. In the old days, we used to call that a clean opinion, which means that the information contained in the report is presented as it should be in conformity with the rules and regulations of our profession. So that clean opinion, so to speak, is the type of opinion you want to have when you're handing this report out to any agency that's requesting or the taxpayers in general. And then behind that independent auditor's report, there's a section that's called the management discussion and analysis. And really what it is basically what I'm giving you here. Doesn't go back 5 years, but it's a comparison between 22 and 21 and reasons for the increases and decreases, and just other general information about the finances of the township in total that's required to be in your audit report on an annual basis. So again, I always encourage my board members to, if you get a chance, read those two sections in particular. It'll give you a good, just another synopsis, like I'm giving you this evening, of how you did for calendar year '22. So I think in a nutshell, those are the highlights. I wanted to be as brief as possible and try to lay it out for you as easy as possible. But if you have any questions at this point, I'll be more than happy to answer them if I can.
Board have any questions? Not seeing any, sir. Thank you for your help.
Okay, thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you.
All right, next item for discussion is the 2024 budget presentation. Finalize the budget for recommendation for approval by the Board of Commissioners. These are some of the highlights of the 2024 proposed budget. In 2023, we had a lot of accomplishments. We completed our 2023 comprehensive plan that was adopted. We started the DARE program in the schools. We turned a basketball court into multi-use court with pickleball. We applied for a pickleball grant, still waiting for that. We did our disc golf up at Oak Hollow. We celebrated our 250th celebration, and pretty soon we're finalizing the codification of the ordinances, so that way they are online. All our ordinances are codified. The 2024 budget schedule, now we're in November. The budget presentation and advertise for ordinances for the budget and tax levy for year 2024. And then in December, you will formally adopt the 2024 budget. Some budget highlights. The general fund is balanced at $15.8 million. This is not using any carryover money, and it's not using any reserve money, and no tax increase is recommended. We are financially healthy, as you just received your presentation of the 2022 audit. So all of our funds combined is a total balanced budget at $18.5 million. So this is my favorite slide because everybody says your taxes are high. Well, it's not the municipalities' taxes that are high. As you see in the pie chart, the school district has the large portion of taxes, the county the second largest, with the municipality as the smallest portion of that piece of pie. With no tax rate increase, it still stays at 9.23 for general purposes for the general fund. Westmoreland County tax rate is 21.49. The Norwin School District is 85.8. So a parcel value, the median household value of the township of parcel is about an average of $20,000. So out of that $20,000, your tax bill is $2,400. Out of that $2,400, the municipality only gets $189 of that. So when people say, you guys, your taxes are high, it's not us. We have the lowest taxes. Going on for general fund revenue highlights. There is a small 4% decrease going into this year, but that's because of we're not having a 250th celebration, so we don't have those sponsorships yet that I didn't account for, and some of the grants. But for next year, there's $864,000 that we're going to receive in grant money. We're spending that money this year in 2023. But we'll get that money back in 2024. We're going to be receiving or transferring about $190,000 in opioid funds once we receive that money to put back into the general fund to pay for the DARE officer and the DARE program and supplies. Again, this budget's balanced without utilizing reserves. And as you can see, some of the significant increases in the earned income tax. This slide is a 2024 general fund revenue summary by all our categories. The local enabling tax is our largest at $8.3 million of the general fund, and that is going to be an increase of 4%. The grants, as you can see, the grant is going to be increased from $40,000 that we received this year to that $864,000 for the police department. State shared revenue, that's our PMRS, and our foreign fire tax, or Foreign Fire Relief Association, there's going to be an increase. Public safety, an increase. Recreation, the reason why there's a decrease in revenue is because I didn't factor in the sponsorship money that we'll going to go after again for events. We received large portions this year because we had that 250th celebration. And then miscellaneous, this is transfers into the general fund from the reserve account. And we budgeted 1.4 million, but so far, if you recall, throughout the year, we had the board authorized transfers from the general fund reserve into the general fund. We have not had to make those transfers yet. We budgeted for them, but we have not used any money from the general fund reserve. So we're doing great. The budget's expenditure summary per department. The biggest increase is going to be the communications and technology department. We're going to focus more on marketing and advertising for the municipality and our events. The police department, it's a negative 10%. We are not defunding the police. That is because they received a large grant that we're spending this year. We're not going to be spending that money next year, so that's why there's a decrease. 28% increase in EMS because we're giving them an addition. We're increasing their donation from $72,000 to $100,000. Emergency management, that's 54%, but it's really a couple $1,000 because we bought emergency management. We bought road barriers this year. We won't have to buy road barriers next year. Community development, I increased the demolition budget from line item from $25,000 to $50,000 because you can see the demolitions that are going on that you guys just recently approved or going to approve are going to be paid for out of 2024 budget. The insurance is going up, and our tax refunds, the tax refunds increased a couple $1,000s because the firemen, the volunteer firefighters, they receive a portion of their property tax and their earned income tax back. We process the property tax, but Berkheimer processes the earned income tax. And when I took it over this year, I found several discrepancies that volunteer firefighters some of them were double paid. They were paid on Berkheimer's part and on our part, and a lot of them were underpaid for their earned income tax. To me, that's not fair. They volunteer their service. They need to get every penny that they can. So we're going to do that in-house. I'm going to meet with the fire departments next month so that way we can get it formalized and the process started in January. Because they deserve every penny. So some of the general fund factors that are causing the increase in expenditures is 11% increase in healthcare cost, 5% increase in liability insurance, and our workers' comp increase from $309,000 to $394,000. Personnel schedule administration, we're going to go from 6 full-time employees this year to 5 full-time employees. We are not filling the assistant manager's position. Communications technology coordinator still at 1 position, full-time. Engineering as 1 full-time engineer tech and 1 part-time engineer. The police department remained at 29 employees, and we went from 6 full-time telecommunications officers to 5 full-time with 3 part-time. Planning and zoning remains at 4. Crossing guards remain at 5 part-time. Public Works remains at 20 full-time employees, and Parks and Recreation remains at 6 full-time employees. As you can see, our general fund balance remains high. We project we're going to end the year with $6.6 million in that general fund balance, which puts us at 42%. The board does have a policy to not go under 25%. And you just received that presentation from the auditor. So the 2024 total budget, the general fund budget, the light fund, the water fund, the fire service fund, the parks fund, the liquid fuels fund, and the capital reserve fund. Those are in detail in the budget message that I have for you, but those are pretty much self-explanatory and easy funds. The fire service fund is going to, with the taxes that have come in, each fire department is projected to get $76,738 for their distribution later on next year, which I think it's an increase of about $3,000 from last year. The capital reserve fund, the revenues are projected at $390,000, the interest of $400. Prior year balance at $359,000 for a total of $750,000 that we need to use for 2024. And it still leaves money in the capital reserve account. So some of the things that we have to do is administration, $110,000. $10,000 is always earmarked for furniture upgrades throughout the townhouse. But the biggest thing is our roof. We've had water leaking into Director Miller's office. Upon further investigation, there was a hole in the roof that rotted out. About a month or two ago, we had water dripping into one of the alarms up on the third floor. And our roof is over 20 years old estimated. We put a lot of money into the infrastructure, into this townhouse, that now we have the money available to replace the roof. We did receive one quote, about $60,000 to $70,000, but again, that's just for the roof itself. Who knows what's going to go on underneath there? If plywood needs replaced, additional flashing, things like that. So we'll have to put out, in January, the board will have to approve for me to put out an RFP to get services for the roof and then award it to the contractor. But now's the time to replace the roof, and we have the money available to do it out of the capital reserve. For the police department, 3 vehicles, a camera lease, and firearms purchase. They're going to replace all their firearms throughout the police department at, I think, $34,000 is the projected spending for that. Public Works, $345,000. The street sweeper, that's about a $60,000 a year lease. They like to need to purchase a jackhammer for the backhoe. And the dump truck that we've ordered but still hasn't gotten here, it's about $225,000. I increased that to $250,000. We're not going to be getting that this year, but it should be here next year. So we'll have to cut that check next year. And for the parks, $52,000 for the Toro Workman and Top Dresser for their equipment. So our goals for 2024 is the Oak Hollow Park improvements. We have that grant still out there for the pickleball court, and we'd like to apply for a grant for the multi-surface field in the spring. Indian Lake Park improvements, signage, bridge, safety, and dredging. We're going to need to dredge that lake. Not sure if we'll do it next year, but it's on our goal. We have earmarked money for Indian Lake and Oak Hollow Park, and the money for Indian Lake is about $74,000, the earmarked for Indian Lake. We're going to look at getting costs to replace the sign out front to match the one with Oak Hollow Park, so we're get pretty standard. So we'll present that to the board later on next year. The pedestrian bridge, that has a beam that needs shored up, that needs replaced. There's 3 beams. One of them is rotted away. It's just pedestrian. No vehicles are allowed to cross that bridge. Next year, our goal is also to seek more grant funding for various MS4 projects and stormwater projects. Next year, we start the police department negotiations. Now that we have the comprehensive plan done, the next step is to update the zoning ordinance. It hasn't been updated since 1992, and start utilizing the components of the comprehensive plan. Any questions?
Yes. So we're talking about some new vehicles coming in. So what can we do with the old vehicles? Can we sell them to recoup some of the financials?
Yes, we would lease the police department vehicles. We're upgrading the fleet, so that way it has single user vehicles.
Mm-hmm.
That makes the lifespan longer, holds the officer accountable for that vehicle. I don't think we're quite there yet, but I think we will be shortly within the next year or two. But yeah, anytime we replace a vehicle, the first thing is, can we trade it in? whenever we get it from the dealer. And if not, we do have a surplus. I mean, we do have a few vehicles back there that we need to put up for auction, and that's our goal to do that in the spring.
And that will be the same thing for parks and recreation vehicles and public work?
Yes,
Fantastic.
Yep.
Okay, and that can help offset some of the costs of the new vehicles?
yes.
Perfect, thank you.
Not a question, but just a comment. Thanks for the presentation was good, and thank you and all the department heads for your fiscal responsibility. I know the past couple years being on this board, we were afraid coming down the road that we kept kicking the can down the road. But I think you guys did a great job of getting together, cutting costs, and being fiscally responsible, and you presented a budget with no tax increase. So just wanted to thank you. Pass that along to the department heads, please.
Absolutely, thank you.
Thanks.
Any other questions or comments about the budget presentation? All right, if the board's okay, Andrew Falk, we'll let the district attorney Ziccarelli come up and make her presentation.
Absolutely. It's getting excited.
Is this on? Okay. Well, I felt really good being in the room with all of you, but I don't know about you. I felt a whole lot better when the police officers came in, and that's traditionally how I feel, and I think that's how we want everybody to feel in our communities. Thank you very much, commissioners, Mr. President, Township Manager. Thank you for having me. North Huntington has always been near and dear to my heart. For those of you who don't know, I grew up in McKeesport, and my piano teacher was in North Huntington, and North Huntington was just an arm's length away. A lot of my immediate family lives here, and so I'm very committed, obviously, to all of our communities in Westmoreland County, but I know your township very well. Also, you call somebody on your board commissioner. I like to refer to him every day as Chief Zona, but tonight I'm going to call him commissioner because we're here in your township. I just think the world of all of you, and Township Manager, I know that you're not defunding the police, and in fact, in Westmoreland County, we're here to make sure that we fully fund the police and that we have the most elite and fully funded police departments in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. And I have to thank you very much for funding your police department and doing everything that you do to make our community safer. Because when I look across our county, you all are leaders. Your police department, they are leaders. They are of the finest standard, and I am so proud to be the chief law enforcement officer in part because of all of them, and I can't speak enough about them. Other departments look to them for advice, guidance, and in particular, the chief that I know is not going to be here for much longer. I have to say that your chief has been nothing but incredibly supportive at the beginning of my tenure, and I'm so grateful for it, as have all of your officers. You are doing your part, and in turn, I am meeting you there. And I'm here tonight. I know you've already received the funds, but I'm incredibly proud to have been able to issue a check for $16,500 to promote two things. Number one, this amazing canine officer here with Sergeant Wardman. I have to tell you, Sergeant Wardman's been down a long road, and we are here in law enforcement to support him, commend him for all of his work, all of his training. I was so honored to be invited to go to one of the trainings with your canine and see all the other canines across the county that are coming here to see him as a leader, to watch what he's doing. And it was really humbling to be there and to see what was going on and to be a part of it. And I'm really honored to be here to support you. And I appreciate your friendship and your professionalism. And I wanted to present you with one of our challenge coins. May I? All right? Thank you so much, Justin, honestly. Thank you so much. We gonna be okay? Always check. Secondly, go ahead. You go ahead. It's okay. We can wait. Not a lot of people compete with me when I'm trying to say something. Probably the same with all of you. Secondly, I just want to note, thank you for your commitment to the Westmoreland County SWAT team. That should not go unnoticed, and I was honored to be able to provide support for your tactical body armor. Tremendously important. We are one of very few counties that has this type of a SWAT team, and thank you for participating in it. I know it originated in the north, but you all coming on board, and now Greensburg has really sent a message of what we're doing here in the county. We are the most elite. We are the most fully funded. We are the finest, and we will continue to be. And under my watch, I'm not going to let it be anything else. So thank you for coming to me when you need something. I will meet you there. You may be in a fiscal wonderful position, but I'm still going to meet you where your needs are and where you need to be, because that's the role of the district attorney's office, and that's why we have the forfeiture fund. If you would be so kind to just allow me a moment. Thank you. I'd like to just note that when it comes to your chief and his lovely wife Susanna, who also has been down this road with him all of these years, I know we're all sorry to see him leave. I know I am. He has been a stalwart for me, a point of great reference, a point of great knowledge and information and support, and I'm going to be very sad to see him go. I know he will continue to be a personal friend to all of us, and I'm sure you'll make the right decision in whomever you pick, and I give you my word that I will support your new chief and whoever that is. But I do just want to note that I brought you a certificate of appreciation from the district attorney's office. I can't see, I'm 42, and so it's happening already. Maybe that or the 4 kids. This certificate of appreciation is presented to North Huntington Police Chief Robert Rizzo. The Westmoreland County District Attorney's Office extends its sincerest gratitude and appreciation for your years of public service, selfless sacrifice to policing our communities, and preserving and protecting public safety in Westmoreland County and in the Commonwealth. And it's signed by myself and my Chief County Detective, Ron Zona. Thank you. One more thing that I brought you. You're not going to remember this picture. Very early on, I took a picture with you, your mentor, and one of mine, Chief Seafield. So I have a picture of the Murraysville Chief of Police, myself, and Chief Rizzo under the District Attorney's seal. So I wanted to present you with this as well.
Gosh, thank you so much. I remember that.
So it's very sentimental. Well, I thank you all very much again. Thank you for your time. I know your time is valuable. Thank you for inviting me. If you ever need anything, you have a friend in me. And I know I have a friend in all of you. Thank you very much for your commitment to the police. Nothing could be more important. And I thank them all for what they do.
Thank you for coming out tonight. All right, Manager Falk.
All right. Item number 3 is the tax levy ordinance for 2024. You'll have this for a motion to advertise at next week's meeting. We just have to update the street lighting assessments. That's the only thing that needs to be updated at this point in time. But it does set the tax rate, a general fund at 9.23, the capital reserve at 1 mil, fire service, the sum of 1.32 mils, the water hydrant district at 0.14 mils, and the light district is 73 cents per foot for the first 50 feet of improved land, and 20 cents per foot for each additional foot of improved land. So you'll have that for advertisement next week. Item number 4 is the 2024 salary and wage schedule. As you can see, I have some crossed out sections of number 2 and number 3. It appears historically this was increased per the CPI index every year. Last year was increased, I think by 8.2%. I recommend that we don't increase this every year per the CPI, because you're going to get to a point where these are going to be astronomical and unsustainable. So I left them the same this year. This is just the salary scale. You will have a resolution next month or next week to vote on, setting the salaries for these positions, which these are non-union positions, and with a budget, they are a 3% increase. Again, this is just a salary scale, so if one position needs to be filled, you have a salary scale to go in and offer that applicant. There may have been some confusion that this was the salaries for next year, but they are not. They're just a salary scale. Is there any questions on that resolution? Okay. Moving on, we have a request from North Huntington Township Municipal Authority to waive their building permit fee for their cost. Our cost for the building permit fee would be $1,880. It is my understanding that the board always, or has a history of waiving the fee for the municipal authority. So you'll have a motion for that next week for consideration. All right, moving on to item number 6, pet ownership and nuisance. Commissioner Atwood requested this for the agenda for discussion for this month's meeting. I have in your packets our current ordinance for animals and domestic animals. And alongside that next is the Hoffman's Board and Kennels contract renewal. So we'll kind of put those two together. After reviewing our current ordinance, is there any questions about that ordinance? Is there anything that you'd like to see changed or amended for the future? If you have any questions,
I have a few things.
Chief Rizzo can.
My original idea of bringing this up was to just make sure that it is up to date with what is current standard. I was hoping. I'm not sure the process. I believe I don't know if we send it to the Planning Commission to do that, or if that's something we do on our own. I'm going to defer to the board for what they see, what they read, and if they feel it needs to be updated or not.
Typically, in my experience, and the solicitor may be able to answer that too, it's up to the board or council to decide what kind of actions or how they want to control the nuisance animals, down to exotic pets, how many dogs, how many cats are allowed, or domestic animals are allowed in the house. But as the board has issues or complaints, it's good to revisit the ordinance to take a look at it for any changes or updates.
I agree with what the manager has said. I would also add that I don't remember anybody complaining. I mean, I don't know that we've seen any serious complaints about this, so it's one of those things, if it's working, don't fix it.
I have reports of at least 3 dog bites that ended up in the hospital. That's in the last probably 6 to 8 weeks. I know I have reported them, and I'm not sure if there have been others.
Was
So
it
there
the
have
same
been
dog?
complaints.
Was it the same dog or 3 separate
It was
dogs?
not. They were separate dogs.
Okay.
I would say I did some research on this and looked at some surrounding townships and just looked up some other townships in PA. This is a pretty extensive policy if you look at other ones. Some of them were like a half a page, some of them were maybe 2 paragraphs, and those are townships right around us, like in close proximity. So I think this is pretty detailed and pretty complex. Yeah, and I kind of like it. The only question I had is under the definitions, if you, on the second page, under nuisance, where it says animal causes damage to public or private property, causes harm or unreasonable annoyance to any person. I mean, would you want to add to another animal also? Because you can have a dog that would attack another dog too. And if you're out walking your dog on a leash and a dog comes by that's not on a leash and attacks your dog, that wouldn't be covered. That wouldn't fall under a nuisance right now. Somebody can have their dog severely injured or killed, and it wouldn't fall under this ordinance. So that's the only thing that I would change in this. That's just my opinion, but.
I would agree with Commissioner Zona. That exact situation happened literally right down the street from my house here.
Yeah, it happened to my wife years ago, so I have to agree with Commissioner Atwood and Commissioner Zona. Something needs to be done. It's not always an animal on a human. It could be animal to animal, and we need to seriously look at that and address that issue.
I think, I'm comfortable with that change, and the solicitor might be able to describe that, but I don't know if they would consider an animal as private property, so it might fall under that, but if we
Yeah.
want to specify it out, we can.
Just to say
Yeah.
it, just to resolve any issue. I'd ask the chief his opinion on this. Have we, how often is it enforced? Have we made arrests for this or cited people for
Well, see,
this?
that's the thing, I prepared for tonight, I talked to both chiefs next door, so Penn Township and Murraysville. Chief Seafield sent me theirs, and it's literally this. It's
Yeah, I looked theirs up
very,
online,
very,
yeah.
very, very
Yep.
broad, very minute, non-evasive, and they reference everything back to Hoffman's Kennels for enforcement. Chief Otto, the same. Their officers don't do anything at all, and enforcement is all sent to Hoffman's Kennels, same as what we have here. So, they have no, I think, like what you guys said, I think ours is way more extensive than anything that, I mean, this is a single page, and it really focuses on just nuisances and dog barking. But again, they were both adamant that their officers don't get into the nitty-gritty with this. It goes to Hoffman's Kennels, which is our contracted service provider also.
Chief, if you can you walk us through a process if a complaint comes in about a dog?
Yeah, so, depending upon what it would be, we will send an officer, so we still would respond. Incident would be generated, officer would do the report. If it's a dog bite, we definitely go out, do the initial, everything's done, and then forward it over to Hoffman's. They do all the follow-ups. They do all the interviewing. They go and do the
Fix your
license.
microphone.
It's on. They do the licensing. They check all of that. So, the officer goes out, does the initial, does everything, squares it all away, and all the follow-ups, any citations, any court, all of that goes through Hoffman's Kennels. So, kind of what we talked about the last month, like even on the dangerous side of things, our officers would respond, but going out and snaring dogs and dealing with wild animals and stuff like that, our officers aren't trained for that. We've never received any formal training for that. Back in my early days when I was younger, it was something we were expected to just do. I think we've progressed well beyond that in policing and current, and if you're going to expect officers to go do that, you're obviously going to have to train them and provide them with the necessary equipment. So Hoffman's is trained, Hoffman's is contracted, Hoffman's has the equipment to do it right. So, but that's kind of how it would go, and they handle everything, which then frees our officers up to continue to do law enforcement and police work, not to minimize a dog bite, but that's why we have a contract for them to do their job. So,
Thank you.
you're welcome.
There were just a couple of phrases in this ordinance that concern me. One is if someone is driving down the road and hits an animal, they're required to report that to the owner of the animal. And what if they don't know? What if they can't find the owner of the animal? What's their responsibility in a situation like that? So I think maybe something along that lines needs to be built into that. And then there was a part about the animal being secured inside the car. And maybe, Chief, you could explain, is there anything that we require that would require an animal to be belted into a car or like used like a formal animal restraint inside a car?
Not that I'm familiar with, and I don't even believe the crimes code even, or there's nothing in there that would even refer to it. We do respond to, like, if there's an animal left in the car, our officers do respond to those, and then they make a judgment call once they get there, so that's a problem. We do that.
So we may want to clarify in here about the animal being fastened into the car, or however the wording is, that how we want them to be, specifically how we want them to be in that car. Because it's kind of vague, just vague.
Well, a lot of animals cannot be confined by a seatbelt, but you can confine them in a cage
Yes.
or a container. I mean, that's the way I used to transport my animals to the vets. They weren't just out in the car.
Well, I think a lot of people just have their animal in the car and they've got their head out the window enjoying the air as you're driving down the road. So, but this pretty much said that they should be in the car, like restrained in the car. And so if we could clarify that wording so that it doesn't mean they have to be belted in, but the person that has the animal in there has to make sure that the animal can't get out of the car without assistance. If you know what I
I've seen
mean.
people over the years do a combination. They will actually use the seat belt, but before they do, they'll use the harness or the strap and then wind that into the seat belt so it limits the dog's ability to move throughout the cabin. In other words, it won't be able to exit the vehicle. God forbid, in the event of an accident, a dog, depending upon its weight, could become a serious ballistic situation, and affecting the people inside. I don't want to,
I don't think there's anything on the books that we
Yeah.
could enforce that, and I think that that's a bit of a broad, I'm just saying that's a
Oh,
broad
it is.
overreach because of,
Yeah.
I mean, we have Route 30.
I agree.
We can't
I agree.
expect all of our through traffic to understand our ordinances even if we wanted to
agree.
walk down that road, and it would be unenforceable.
I was gonna say the same thing.
So
I
if
don't
that's,
like-
if that language even slightly exists in there, it either needs to be cleaned up or removed. That just seems like a very
It
broad.
states all animals, domestic animals being transported or driven in motor vehicles shall be under the complete control of the driver and be safely secured. So I think safely secured.
Safely
is-
secured inside the vehicle, I think
Yeah,
is what that
exactly,
means,
correct.
in the vehicle.
Yeah.
All
and-
domestic animals left unattended inside motor vehicles shall have adequate air ventilation.
Yeah.
Be cracking the door without letting the animal leave.
I think the meaning behind that is if you park your car with the window open and the dog jumps out and bites somebody, you didn't have your dog secure in that vehicle.
Right,
That's what
that's-
that means. You
right.
can't, somebody's
agree.
driving down Route 30 and they can't pull off the side of the road as soon as they cross the Hempfield Township line into North Huntington and seatbelt their dog in. I mean,
And it goes-
then I don't even think you can say they have to be in a carrier. You can have a big German Shepherd like that, with a small car that you can't get a carrier in.
Yeah,
That's
I
my
think
opinion. I
that,
thought
I think
you
the spirit
secured
of
in
it's
the
probably
vehicle.
right on, Ron. I
What's
think it's
that?
to keep your dog secured.
In the vehicle.
In the vehicle.
Inside
And so
the
that
vehicle.
don't leave the window down so it can jump out
Right.
and run around the Walmart parking lot,
And-
you know.
Or if you
that
have
type
it
of
down
thing.
that much and it can get its head out as long as its whole body can't get out of the
Right.
car, I think is.
Yeah, I think that would be
that's
more the
intent of
spirit.
that.
I think it just needs language cleanup.
Yeah.
I think that's the intent of it
Yeah.
too, but I think the wording needs to be.
Hey, please understand, in no way was I attempting to put more workload on the police department.
No,
by,
I
hey,
knew
you
that
gotta
wasn't
pull over
the
that
case.
car, because that kid doesn't have the dog
Yeah.
light. My thing in saying what I said was based on just a recommendation. Hey, folks, if you don't want your little pup or kitty jumping out, you might want to think about it. But no way am I asking for the police department to make this
Yeah. I get you.
a what?
I got you.
Yeah.
We're good.
Well, I just want to make sure everybody knows
sure.
what I'm trying to say.
Absolutely.
All right. Any other suggestions or comments on the proposed ordinance? All right, I think Manager Falk, go ahead.
I would just a question on the agreement with Hoffman Kennel. That is, did you say that is the same cost as prior, correct? The
Yeah, I think
$100 per
that's-
call?
Next on the agenda.
Yeah,
He put them both together.
well, I didn't put them both
Oh.
together, but that's the next item for discussion.
Oh, I thought you said we can discuss them together.
You
I'll
you
wait.
can,
Yeah.
yes.
Okay.
yeah.
I just,
That's
that
what I had
$100 per call, that's what it was in the past, correct?
I am not 100% sure.
I think
Chief,
that's
are
what
you
it was
aware of that?
last time we voted on
Okay.
it. Was it?
I don't.
You don't, okay.
Yeah, I don't know the particulars
Maybe we
of
can
the
just, we
contract.
can check the old one for
We can
next
double
week. We
check,
can have
yes.
it. That's good, thank you.
Yeah, the board will have, item number 7, the contract needs to be renewed, and you'll have that for consideration in next week's meeting, and I'll update on the cost difference.
Just out of curiosity, there was someone in here one time that requested the ability to compete with that contract. Did we do anything to put that out for bid? Or-
You know what, that person had reached out to me, and I had them come to a meeting, and I think after the meeting, Manager Silka at the time asked her to reach out the following day he would give her the information that she needed to submit a proposal, and she never did. So I don't know who that was, because she had reached out to me at the time, but you're right, Virginia, so I never followed up with it, because she didn't reach out and do what she was supposed to do.
And I don't believe you have to put this out for bid because it is a professional service.
I was just wondering, because someone
Yeah.
did express interest before.
All right, moving on to item number 8, various board vacancies. The Planning Commission, there are two, there are two positions, the terms are up at the end of the year, William Chapman and Stephen Cross, and they both wish to be reappointed. The Zoning Hearing Board, there's one applicant or one member that's up at the end of the year, Russell Hayes, and he would like to be reappointed. The Educational Service Agency, there is one vacancy that is set by the school board. I did reach out to them last year, but never did hear anything back. But again, this board was set up by a court order back in the 80s to basically just hire crossing guards. But as the board directed last month to work with the solicitor to see what our options are with getting rid of that board and having the crossing guards under the police department. NHTMA, there's one member that's up, Raymond Rush, and he would like to be reappointed. The Recreation Board, there are two vacancies with no board members, so we can advertise for that if the board would like to. And the Western Westmoreland Municipal Authority, there is one member that is up, Kevin McHugh, and he is interested in being reappointed. So we can have those reappointments on either December, well, we could do December or January at the reorg meeting, typically at the reorg meeting.
Yep.
So would the board wish for me to have a motion on next week to advertise for the Recreation Board?
Sure.
And the vacancy.
I think we're supposed to remove that from the table procedurally next week. You want to be okay with that?
I'll have a motion on there to remove from the table. And the Vacancy Board as well, the solicitor. That is all I have.
All right, thank you, Manager Falk. Plan and engineering topics, Director Fonzie.
There were 3 items that were approved by the Planning Commission this past Monday. And the first was subdivision 23 of 2023. This is the Thomas Farm Acres Revision 2. So this is the new plan that's currently being constructed on the Kerber Farm site. So there's 4 existing properties. The blue polygon is owned by William and Virginia Friend, and the red is owned by Matthew Palo and Stephanie Jones. And basically what they want to do is increase their rear yard. So the green lot is the existing dairy store that Tom Kerber still owns, where the tube slides are and everything. And the yellow is the balance of the plan that's still retained by the developer, Knights Landing Incorporated. So essentially what they want to do is increase those 2 home lots on Sunday Drive. The Kerber lot actually is a balanced lot, so whatever they're giving up to the 2 homes, they're getting back from Knights Landing, and it's roughly a half an acre that Knights Landing Incorporated is losing. So essentially, it's just increasing their rear yard, so no new lots are created, and the Planning Commission approved this at their meeting. Any questions? Oh, one other thing I wanted to add is because of that extension of the rear lots, there's a stormwater easement that's going to be altered, so that has to be re-recorded. So that's what's highlighted in orange there. That's going to be the new stormwater easement. So we'll memorialize that on the subdivision plan. Any questions on that one? Okay, the second plan is subdivision 24 of 2023. This is Sunset Valley Phase 1 Revision 2. So this is a chunk of land that was never developed, although there are 31 existing lots from the Sunset Valley plan that was recorded in 1958. It was the Phase 1 of that plan. So there's an existing right-of-way, there's small single-family lots that are zoned R2, and the new owner, Pasquarelli Property Management, is planning to put in the roads, extend the roads. So this is at the top, this is Walter Avenue, which currently terminates at Joseph Street. And then he wants to extend that and then put another cul-de-sac in the right-of-way of what is Sunset Avenue coming from the other side. So instead of Sunset Avenue being a through street coming all the way through to Walter, the developer and a nearby property owner have agreed to just create a cul-de-sac there to maintain privacy. The applicant is only seeking the preliminary approval for this. Those are lots of record. What I have highlighted, in total, it's about 7 acres. It's currently 1 lot, but the developer would like to create 6 new lots and a cul-de-sac at Walter Avenue. And then this green lot, that would be 1 lot, which is roughly 3 acres, 3.5 acres, that would be accessed from the end of Ivanhoe and Camelot. So if you're familiar with Ivanhoe, it kind of terminates, goes down over the hill and just is a dead end. So the developers agreed to dedicate right-of-way for a cul-de-sac that the township could actually go in, pave a cul-de-sac if they want, pave a hammerhead that would make it easier for the snow plows to go in and get out easier. When the developer and applicant are going for the preliminary approval, we ask that they waive their development rights. In other words, if they are granted preliminary approval, they cannot start paving the road, they can't run any stormwater lines, creating any detention ponds. Everything will be deferred until final approval. So they still have to do grading, they still have to do a lot of reports, stormwater reports with the ponds, but they just wanted to kind of get their foot in the door with this preliminary approval and then come back later next year and finish out the plan. And this was approved by the Planning Commission, I believe, 6-1. Any questions on this subdivision?
Is a preliminary approval required?
What typically happens, and I don't know why we're seeing more of these recently, the way the MPC reads is that the developer can come for preliminary and final approval simultaneously. And that's what happens 99% of the time. But you can come through and just request preliminary approval, similar to the Bear Peak Power. They're still in a research mode. They kind of wanted to lock something in, and then they still had a lot of work to do on their end, like with the retaining wall, the grading, and they just didn't want to spend the money right up front to come through for a final approval. So it's sort of like a baby step. So it's like if they get the preliminary approval, it's not harming the township because they're waiving their development rights. So the owner can't do anything with these lots until they have final approval, which means they have to get all the reports, get through conservation district, sewage planning, grading, everything has to be set up for them to achieve final approval. So again, it's kind of like an earmark on a plan or on these existing lots, and they have this preliminary approval, and and there's vague language in the MPC and in our subdivision land development ordinance that talk about that. It's a very minute blurb that's not always clear. So, but again, yeah, to your point, I don't know why we're seeing this. Is probably like the 3rd or 4th one we've seen in the last 6 months. I don't know why.
And if we don't give preliminary approval, are they going to walk away?
I don't believe so. They'd probably just defer it till later.
Right. Yeah,
And-
I'm not a fan.
Yeah, I don't understand it myself, but it's an option. And the other thing I wanted to mention is, so the cul-de-sac that's being created within the Sunset Avenue right-of-way, it's going to be called Selena Court, is longer than the 700-foot maximum in our Saldo. So they are proposing a cul-de-sac, I believe it's 811 feet. So they would need a waiver on that. So that'll be set up in the resolution for next week's meeting for the tentative approval.
I thought that they were only 10 feet over.
That's what they said in the meeting, and then I went and looked at the drawing, and it's cleared out. It's stationed in 100-foot segments, and it goes to 800 in the cul-de-sac, and then another 9.95 feet or something. So it's about 110 feet over the max.
Well, wouldn't that have to go back to the planning commission then, if the amount was like an additional 100 feet rather
Well-
than just 100?
Well, the
just 10
motion
feet?
still included the waiver,
Yeah.
and this board would have the final say on that approval. And that distance is spelled out in the approval resolution for next week of what they're seeking.
Did you say that was the one that is 100 some over? Is that Selena Court? That's the one on the left?
Yes, let me,
Right there. the
so
one on the
yeah,
left,
this Walter Avenue will be extended, and then the Selena Court will come up, and then cul-de-sac, and then this is still the Sunset Avenue right-of-way. So if you keep going left of this drawing, you'd hit Sunset Avenue and can be able to access James or Evan Street, I forget which street to lead out to Guffey.
Okay.
And I should note that the developer also did a subdivision a couple months ago to consolidate 3 lots into 2 around this cul-de-sac and received zoning hearing board approval for reduced front setbacks along that cul-de-sac to dedicate that right-of-way so that a full cul-de-sac could be paved, so that our, Public Works would have easier access.
Any other board discussion or questions?
Okay, and the last is the Stonegate PRD. So this has been a continual topic. They did receive the tentative approval in August, which was kind of spelled out in KU Resources review letter of what they had to do. They've met pretty much every condition, so that's why they're coming through for final approval. This is the 27 acres off of Ipnar Road, and they are proposing 28 single-family attached units and 2 single-family estate lots, essentially. So again, the applicant has checked off every box. The consultant is very comfortable with giving them the final approval based on his final review letter, which was just a couple notation errors on the drawings. But the Planning Commission also approved this 7-0. Any questions on Stonegate?
I have a question on that. Does he have an NPDES permit?
For this development, yes.
Okay.
Yep. Yep, has the sewage planning, has everything. So this approval will basically have no conditions other than the review letter, which is, like I said, just a couple minor elements. That's all I have tonight.
Thank you, Director Fonzie. Any further board comments?
I would, if you don't mind. In a couple days, we're going to celebrate Veterans Day. And I just want to take the opportunity to really, honest to God, thank each and every one of our veterans. Those that are still with us by God's grace, and those that have moved beyond to the great beyond. I not only want to thank them for their service to this great, wonderful nation and to the people of this nation, but I also want to take the time to thank their families. When you join the military, it becomes a shared responsibility. It's not just the soldier, the sailor, the airman, or the Marine. It's also the families, for they sometimes get left behind. And I just want to thank everybody from the bottom of my heart for serving this nation, for serving God and country. And I ask that may God shine greatly upon each and every one of you and your families. And again, thank you so much for your service. Thank you.
I'd also like to thank you, Eric.
It's an honor.
Yeah. Thank you.
Anything else from the board tonight?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor by stating aye.
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 Opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Meeting adjourned at 8:07. Executive session to follow to talk about